Askreddit, what's the dumbest mistake you've seen an incompetent co-worker make? I worked as a radiation protection tech at a power plant that was refueling. My job was to sit outside of a contaminated area, and if anyone wanted to take something out of the area, tools, etc., I had to make sure it didn't have any radioactive particles on it. To do this, you wipe the tool with something like a tissue and then hold the tissue up to a machine called a frisker. If the needle on the frisker goes above a threshold, then the tool has to be cleaned or left in the area. One day I come back to relieve a guy who had been sitting outside the area for 2 hours. He tells me there's been no issues and everything has cleared. I look at the frisker, lean over and turn the machine on. So you're telling me Homer having his job in The Simpsons is plausible? To start, press any key. Where's that any key?
At a Petco, all the guinea pigs were in a big plexiglass enclosure with a center divider. Boys on one side and girls on the other. An employee decided that all the long-haired guinea pigs should be on one side and short-haired on the other. It took forever to sort them out, and all the females were pregnant. This is why PetSmart runs its stores as boy/girl only for the whole store. Fuck-ups still happen, but not like this. Oh man, and these little ones can multiply like rabbits too.
I worked at a company with a shared inbox. One guy sent all of his emails with a distinct font and color. He was super untrustworthy and sucked at the job. One day he sent an email to a customer from the shared inbox but put my signature on it, to make it seem like it came from me instead of him. He left the font and color the same as all of his other emails. He didn't last long there after that. One of my first office jobs had a really old system for recording notes on customer accounts, such that it would stamp whoever last edited the account record as being the last person who contacted the customer for the purpose of reporting. I realized pretty quickly that my supervisor was going through and doing small edits on all my notes to pump up her numbers, making it look like I wasn't hitting my quota. She was later fired for some other drama and went on to go to jail for stealing from the bank where she worked. Social worker here. We're supposed to see clients who live with families once a year. A mom of a kid kept calling her worker but got no answer. Mom called the on-call worker, who discovered the assigned worker had logged the visits in and made thorough notes. The mom said she never saw her in 2 years. This led to her whole caseload being audited, and then they found she had logged a visit with a client who'd been dead for months. While being audited, her supervisor decided to do a surprise visit to the client she was supposed to see. She never showed up and logged in the visit the next day. What happened to this worker? Similar situation in Manitoba with the Phoenix Sinclair case. Google Phoenix Sinclair plus Manitoba, Canada. Basically, social worker visited and Phoenix was never there. Turns out she'd been murdered by her parents a few months/year back. Manitoba government freaked out and started checking the safety of all kids in the province. Anyone that was considered at risk was put into care immediately. Only not enough foster parents, so most were warehoused in hotels. It was horrible. Good thing none of these cases were life or death. She was fired, of course. I had a coworker who was a guidance counselor at 5 schools in district. She was supposed to work one day at each school, unless she was called to a school for an urgent case. She would frequently call the school she was supposed to be at, stating she had an urgent case at another school. One day at lunch she was talking about what was happening in her favorite soap opera. This was before VCRs, and the show aired long before the school day ended. The principal was sitting at our lunch table. He got up, smiled, and told her, "See me when you are done with your lunch." After checking, she hadn't seen more than a few kids per week, for many months. Funny thing is, complaints about her work had gone down in that time. She was a crappy guidance counselor. They kindly guided her to the exit, I hope. Similar, at one of our stores, a lady comes in one day asking for the manager. He comes out, and she proceeds to start gushing about how wonderful he is, just the best boss ever, brought him cookies. Turns out she is an employee's mom, and thought the manager was just the nicest guy ever for letting her son come home every day. He was a delivery driver, for lunch and a nap. 3 hours daily, home sleeping. That was the reason he was so behind on stuff when he kept complaining about how horrendous traffic was and couldn't make all his stops lol.
Pharmacy. I was a float pharmacist at the time. There was this lady that was a pharmacy assistant. All employees of the grocery chain besides pharmacists were union. Dumb as bricks and extremely negligent, but hadn't made enough mistakes to get fired. You pull up drugs that need to be filled from a queue, scan the bottle of the drug, and the label for the patient prints out. If the drug is incorrect, it will tell you that you're wrong and the label won't print. What I assume happened is she scanned the incorrect bottle, went to get the right one, scanned it, bent down to get a vial, then she opened the wrong bottle of drug, dumped the contents, opened right bottle, dumped the contents. Rx was for 200 tabs, most bottles are 100 count. She left it on the counter to check, and I always opened the vial and look at the tabs or capsules to make sure it's right. Opened it, looked right. Later when the person came to pick up, it was jostled from hanging in the pickup area, and I always open it to show the person what's there and another check for me as well. Lo and behold, glyburide and glycoside are mixed together. I apologized and corrected it, but I was furious. She put a high dose of glyburide in the bottle and the person was on a low dose of glycoside. They could have had a critical hypoglycemic event because they were old, and both meds make you release more insulin. I told her she wasn't allowed to put any bottles in recycling anymore. She had to leave everything she touched on the counter. I also couldn't ask her to enter prescriptions or do anything else because she was useless. She'd worked there for like 9 months, and despite close shadowing and training with the best assistants, she just didn't understand anything. I told her manager and I think she got written up, but she eventually quit because everyone hated her because she was so fucking stupid. She sounds like a coworker I had years ago. Mine seemed to think that she was entitled to a high-paying job because A, she had a master's, and B, it was a privilege just to behold her sparkling personality. So she didn't ever really try to understand the job or be useful. The degree was in, I kid you not, gender and peace building. To say it had nothing to do with her job function is a vast understatement. Personality-wise, she mostly just talked about herself. And she did that most of the day, even after I'd talked to her about how we were in crunch time and needed to buckle down. I did basically half her job, in addition to my own in a very busy time. Like most of us, she'd been brought in on a temp-to-hire basis. I'd cautioned her repeatedly that this was a probationary period and being hired wasn't guaranteed. All the more so after I told HR how useless she'd been. Somehow, she was still surprised at being let go and threw a huge, noisy, and lengthy fit. Of course, HR informed the agency immediately, so it's unlikely she ever got another gig from them.